Welcome into the official. We got a great show for you this week, as usual. But this week, we wanted to get the people involved, all of our followers, all of our listeners and watchers in the Discord at Campus Canton. We wanted to ask, what questions do you have about this class? How would you like us to, answer the burning things that you think about with the 2024 class? So we're doing a mailbag, and you'll have to excuse my raspy voice. I'm still getting over a little something, but it should be great. We got some good questions on deck. Of course, at the end, stay for the end. We'll talk about some recent commitments that may impact various football teams around the country. So, with that being said, this is the official. All right, gentlemen, thanks for being with me tonight. And we're going to do a mailbag show. I mean, we got a lot of questions to answer. I'm not sure we need too much more introduction. We're going to hear from the people and try to answer their questions about the 2024 class. So first on the list is going to be a question from Andrew DeBoer. He says, are we getting running back fatigue? And he says, we've had so many, in quotes, perfect running backs recently. They were starting to fade guys that are merely good and not generational and great. He cites Saquon, JT, Brees, Bijan Robinson. I would say that, I'm not sure JT and Brees were thought of as perfect running backs coming into the NFL. I mean, those guys were second-round picks. There was plenty of argument on Twitter if they were even good, to be honest with you. So I think it's a little revisionist to look back and say these guys were all perfect prospects. What do you think?
I mean, yeah, that's exactly what I have down. I was really high on Jonathan Taylor coming to the NFL, but especially looking at you guys from a recruiting perspective, Bijan was the only guy that was considered he was the only one that was the running back in his class. None of the other guys were even, top three on 24/7 that year. So I don't think those are good examples, at least. And frankly, it really just comes down to the positional value, in terms of NFL. And also, I think a lot of good high-end running back prospects are going and playing other positions now. So I think the position as a whole is getting, lowered a bit.
Diluted. David, do you think are we undervaluing the good players if they're not elite?
I think if you hang out on Twitter a little too much, there's a lot of negativity around and we overanalyze everything, I think. I think you got to kind of focus on what a running back can do and then, what he can bring to a team. I think the NFL is becoming more of a passing league, and so there's not as many bell cows, and frankly, it's just hard to find big athletic running backs that have a 3-down skill set in general. So it's just like there's going to be knocks on a lot of guys. There's not going to be a lot of really clean profiles. That's just how it works. So you just have to accept that there's just going to be a lot of players that are going to have flaws, and that's the way it is. And you're going to have to find a balance.
Yeah, and I really try to take every player in every class, kind of with a clean slate, objectively, not compared to a previous class necessarily or anything like that. And, I think the 2023 class, we liked a few guys. I mean, Cedric Baxter, pretty excited about him. Justice Haynes looks fantastic and is already doing stuff in practice. I think 2024, I don't know if this question came out because we have dogged the 2024 running back class. It may just not be good. I mean, I'm not sure. I don't feel like I'm just only grading guys good if they match Saquon Barkley. I think it just might be a tough position for the class, and that happens. So I would say to Andrew, answer Andrew. I personally don't think we're having running back fatigue. I think we have gotten about one great running back prospect per class or so over the last, for rookie classes, because he was comparing to NFL. So over the last 5 or 6 years, there's 4 high end running backs. It's about right. You don't get one every year, maybe every other. It's about right. I mean, I don't think, I think, and in the recruiting sense, the same thing. I mean, 24 just could be a down running back class. And I think that's the end of the story. All right, moving on. Another one of our Discord members named Back to Beck referencing the Georgia quarterback who's probably going to take over, Carson Beck. I thought that was a pretty clever name. He asked me particularly today, why do you hate Dontravius Braswell? I'll just answer this briefly. I don't hate the guy. He was a mid tier 3 for me, and he got dinged because there was almost no evidence of pass game work. He may be able to do it. I can't evaluate if I can't see it, if he's not asked to do it. So I don't guess. I just give him lower marks there. And then I did think he was a little bit, chicken with his head cut off, running around sometimes. I'm not sure there was a lot of decision making that I thought was really good. He was able to use his athleticism and size to move around and make things happen. I question if that style is going to work at South Carolina in the SEC. Maybe it will. I just had to give him some lower marks on, I think it was vision, footwork, body control, because he just kind of was all over the place, which was very fun to watch when it turns into a 75-yard touchdown, but it could very well turn into a 7-yard loss in the SEC. So I don't hate him. I think he's fun. I know Matt really likes him. There were some concerns for translation of that game. He also has a few other questions I'll throw to you guys. He was interested in knowing more about how we break down film, and had a good idea. Maybe in the future we'll do a full film session show, which we haven't really done, where we really watch maybe a whole game or parts of a game and just get into the nitty gritty. But for today, to kind of address the question, I was going to throw it to you guys. How do you grade? We do have a sheet. We have categories. Each category has a total number that you grade out of. And so this is going to be just one part of the running back criteria, and 4 sections. And I was going to throw it to you and say, what do you look for? And those 4 things are footwork, contact balance, vision, and change of direction. So Matt, you can go first. Can you be specific as to things you are looking for that would cause a good grade or a bad grade in those areas?
Yeah, so I think change of direction and contact balance are pretty straightforward. That's just something you could see, and most football fans just they know. But footwork and vision, I think they're a bit more intricate and a bit more subjective depending on who you talk to. For me, for footwork, I'm looking for. I think the two definitely tie in very closely to vision and footwork. For me, footwork is mostly in the box stuff, how they maneuver around the line, subtle movements to set up their blocks, the angles that they're taking to get around certain blocks and stay away from defenders. Just those subtle movements. I'm not talking about hard cuts and jukes in the open field. That's change of direction to me. And then vision is how they're able to navigate outside of the designed play. So if a guy's just running a straight line, just straight up the gut, and they don't have to maneuver around any other players or anything, I'm not going to give them high marks in that area. More than likely, they have to show they can adapt to a lane being closed off, and then having to maneuver around somebody, showing off that footwork, and then flipping the field potentially.
And that's probably where full game charting really comes into play, because highlights, you're never going to see a guy just shut down the lane and run into the back of his O lineman. You'd probably have to watch a whole game to see that happening. All right, David, footwork, contact balance, vision, change of direction, anything you'd add or subtract from what Matt said?
I would echo all that, but with footwork, I'm just looking honestly just for quick active feet. It's, I think ground contact time is one thing I kind of look at. It's not something I measure or anything. It's just how is he kind of, is he light on his feet? Basically, you don't really want heavy footed running backs in really any position. So I think that's just kind of a feel thing, something I look at. Contact balance, I think it's a couple different things, indirect and direct contact.
Mm-hmm.
Indirect, he's making subtle movements. Maybe a guy's hitting from the side. Can he keep his balance? Can he stay on his feet? Direct balance, direct contact is maybe a little more impressive. You don't want it. You don't want to take direct contact ever. You want to be a little savvier to avoid that. But when you do, can you take a big time hit and stay on your feet? That's always impressive. And I kind of gauge how big is the defender? How hard did he really hit him? Did he have a full head of steam? Stuff like that. So I'm looking at that, and then kind of looking at pad level in general with contact balance. Is he taking a blow and he's kind of like very upright. And if he can do that and then be coached to like improve his pad level, that's something to think about. And then like, yeah, like he talks about with vision, it's just like vision. I struggle with it. Like with highlights, like you really, I feel like you have to watch like a full game, go on YouTube, go on NFHS, go find a full game and get a better feel for it. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just like consistently bouncing outside when it's unnecessary, running into your own line, that's probably not good. And then like, things to do is like reading leverage of your blockers, like finding cutback lanes, manipulating linebackers and safeties with like your eye movements and like just subtle movements in general. And I just think having a general awareness of where everyone is on the field, basically. And then change of direction. Alfred, you kind of taught me this one, and that's just like the arm waving thing that we talk about. That kind of goes with body control too. And I've heard it called ruddering, like kind of using your arm as a rudder to turn the corner and stuff. So that's like kind of like that's a little bit of a red flag. I feel like it's just not efficient movement. I think having wasted movement in general is just not, so like having to gather yourself with like multiple steps when you're kind of redirecting and stuff. Like you just want to look for a guy that can kind of plant his foot and just burst the other way. So that's kind of my overview of all those, of what I'm looking for.
Yeah, good stuff. I mean, I'm with you on all those things. I think the ground contact is very interesting. I think when you said that, I was like, I do look for that, but I didn't know what to call it. So that's pretty cool in terms of, one guy, if you go back and look at Trevion Henderson's high school tape, he was a guy like footwork would have been 5 out of 5. I mean, and it's because when you watch him, he's so choppy, he's so decisive, and it looks like his feet are never really even fully on the ground. Everything is like he's just floating around and then like pinpoint moving around. And so his change of direction and footwork to me was excellent, excellent. So if you want a guy who's like perfect in those categories and you're like, I don't know what it looks like, I thought Trevion Henderson's high school tape was fantastic in that aspect. Contact balance, a lot of it is falling forward. Even if you get tackled, are you maintaining yourself forward? Does it take 2 or 3 guys more often than not to bring you down? I mean, falling forward is always really good, even at the college level if you're scouting rookies for the NFL. Matt Waldman talks about this, I believe, quite a bit. Are you always getting, 2 or 3 extra yards just because you have a good base and you're moving forward? You don't get knocked back as much as, other guys. Vision, I feel like you, David. I struggle with vision. I mean, Matt was an offensive lineman, so he knows what these plays are supposed to do. He knows what some guard is supposed to be doing. I don't necessarily have that. I try to read, I try to learn. It's hard for me to understand exactly what an entire play is supposed to be doing. So that's a struggle for me. I think a surrogate a little bit is just, do you make a decisive movement? It's kind of in processing, in under the umbrella of processing. Are you, can I see some patience and then decision? Rather than just like, for instance, Braswell got low marks for me because he never seemed to know exactly what was supposed to happen, but he made it work because he was athletic and big. But he never seemed to like make a decision. He just kind of like sputtered around until he found a hole. So I didn't like that so much. These are all subjective, or a lot of these are, and so we try to put numbers to it at Campus to Canton, but it is difficult sometimes. With that being said, just to mention Campus to Canton again, this is our parent website. We are a show, if you're watching on YouTube, and we love all brands of fantasy football. Campus to Canton specifically caters to those who want to play the college side and the NFL side. You own an entire college fantasy team, and those players then migrate to your NFL Dynasty roster once they graduate or move on to the NFL. It is one of the most immersive, exciting brands of fantasy football that exists. CampusToCanton.com, to my knowledge, is still really the only place you can go to get this type of specific content, in addition to college fantasy content specific to people who play that, and even NFL content and Devy specific to people who play those types of leagues. Everything you want is at CampusToCanton.com. You've got rankings, of course, tools, data analysis tools, depending on what package you sign up for, as low as $2.99 a month. Go check it out, and we will move on to a few more questions here. So what is your type, David? We know I've got a wide receiver type that's been established. I think sometimes this is a little bit of a dirty word because it makes you like pigeonhole players and not evaluate new guys and just write people off very quickly. I can say yes, I do have a type on some of these guys, but do you guys have a type, Matt and David? And why? Like, what is it, and why is that your type? Like, there's got to be a reason. It's not just picked out of thin air. So, Matt, you go first. You can pick one position or all of them, whatever you want to talk about.
Well, I would say I only have a type at one position now. I've kind of gotten rid of my type at wide receiver because over the years it's proven not to be
Big wide receiver guy.
correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
So running backs, at least, I think, just looking at size and speed and production are all very translatable. Going from high school to college and then college to NFL, they all, there's a good amount of correlation there. Whereas, wide receiver, quarterback, things like that just aren't going to cut it. You need much more in-depth analysis. And you obviously do need in-depth analysis of running back too, but those things can take you further at that position than others. So I will rely on it more at running back for sure.
I think that's totally fair. How about you, David? How would you answer some of these questions?
Yeah, I think we all have our biases. It's kind of impossible not to, honestly, but and I think we all try to kind of balance our evaluations in general, but there's definitely like with quarterbacks, I'm definitely looking for mobility. Um, and like an NFL caliber arm, I suppose. So those are like the attributes that stand out. Like I'm looking for those things typically. It doesn't have to be that way, I suppose, for me to like somebody. It's not like I have like thresholds or anything really. With running backs, just like big and fast is just a good starting point, I suppose. Like one thing I've noticed, like guys that are like sub 200 pounds and are their max mile per hour is like slower than 20 miles per hour. I have to be pretty open minded about those players. Like there's definitely going to be outliers. Like Mo Ibrahim was the guy that came to my mind where he's just like coming out of high school, he was like 5'9", 180, and he's not fast at all. But like his contact, like you just have to like make up for it in other areas. Like you have to be like relatively special in other areas. I feel like to make up for it at times. Like he actually has pretty good power for his size, and his contact balance is like really, really good. So like he was a stud in college. But yeah, I'm generally looking for running backs that are going to be over 200 pounds and can hit 21 miles per hour. And then for receivers, I've really gravitated more towards guys that are technical and that are more refined. And if they're not, then they have to be really freaky as athletes. And it's always good to have special teams to boot. I feel like maybe you can like last a little longer and maybe get more of a chance to develop as a player if you can contribute on special teams. That's kind of I guess those are
Yeah.
my types.
100% agree with you on the wide receiver and special teams. And I think that's also something that translates from college to NFL, especially when you're talking about later round picks that last and end up giving you a fantasy season, even one or two kind of wide receiver 2 seasons. They're almost all, I've tracked it for a few years. It's almost all guys who play special teams. And I agree, David, it may be something in their athletic profile, but I think maybe more than that, it's as simple as they stick around on a roster long enough to develop and earn the trust of coaches and wind up, having a wide receiver 2 season. But their special teams is what just kept them around. I mean, that's it. They can be used in multiple ways. They are value to a roster. So it's not even necessarily an athletic talent. It's just like they can fill a role that's not a starting wide receiver, so they hang around. So I think it's a bit of a cheat code. People fall in love with like X type wide receivers picked late, and they're like, this guy's gonna be a dude like A.T. Perry, for example. I honestly I couldn't care anything about A.T. Perry if he didn't get at least day 2 draft capital, because those guys just do not last with zero special teams contribution. Okay, and then I will address wide receiver. For me, it's been said, I like the small, shifty guys, which honestly, I used to be a big wide receiver guy myself. It's just shifted. It's because of the guys we're seeing drafted in the first round now. The types of players we're seeing produce. I agree that if they're big X types, they do need to be freaky, a la a Cordell Russell last year. I ended up bumping him up quite a bit. But if they're kind of just like a big contested catch guy that looks great in high school but doesn't do a whole lot else, even if they're rated highly, I'm probably not going to have them very high myself. One guy who could make me look foolish this year is Carnell Tate, and we will see what happens there. All right, moving on. We're maybe a little behind schedule, so a little more rapid fire perhaps. Felix, our co-founder, wanted us to talk about our biggest hit and our biggest disappointment since we've been doing this. Probably, I guess we started at the 2021 class, 22, 23, and 24. I think we did some in the 2021 class. We had full analysis of 22 and 23, and now we're into 24. So, David, back to you. What's your biggest hit, you think, over the last few years since we've been doing this?
I didn't do 2021, so I can't really speak to that class. 2022, I think the jury's still out on a lot of the QBs and running backs and such. I think wide receiver, I think we have a better idea just given the year 1-0 theory.
Right.
So I'll just be. I think a lot of my hits, I suppose, in that class were relatively obvious. I don't have any like amazing hits as far as wide receiver goes. I think a lot of the guys. It's weird though because we're in a little bit of a cocoon. So it's like I don't know. Like we all loved Matthew Golden, but he was actually pretty low on the services. So it's like
yeah, it counts.
Like all these dudes, like Varian Brown, like Evan Stewart, they're all relatively obvious. So I don't know. I don't have some amazing hit to this point. I'll be honest.
All right, Matt, you want to call yourself out on?
Well, I also didn't really start until 2022, but I was very high on Quinshon Judkins. I will give most credit to recruiting analytics. I think they put everybody onto him, and then the people happen to check him out, end up liking him. But yeah, I was very high on him. And biggest miss up until this point.
Wait,
probably,
we'll do that next.
Oh, okay.
We'll do that next.
Never mind.
All right,
I'll just stick with Judkins then.
Yeah, just good news for right now. Biggest hit for me, I think it was Damian Martinez. I found him. When I mentioned him, even in the group Slack last year, kind of got lukewarm results over time. He started to show up in spring. People started hearing a little bit more about him, and I think by the end of the draft season, he was being drafted in some freshman drafts at the end. I was pretty high on him right away, and I have him in every single league. And he put up 1,000 total yards as a true freshman, in the Pac-12. So that's pretty nice from a 3-star guy that was almost undrafted in a lot of places. And then, now we'll go to disappointment. Matt obviously has one on the tip of his tongue, so he can do that. And then David, and then I'll go.
So actually, I have two.
Very humble.
The big one being Adam Randall. I still don't think it was bad process on my part. I really think the ACL kind of messed things up, and now he apparently added a ton of weight. So I'm not super hopeful at this point about
He still avoided year 1-0 though.
He did, but he didn't look great doing it. I'll be honest. Okay. He looked like a different player to me. So that's one that I'll be pretty disappointed if he doesn't turn things around. And then the other in this class already, the 2023 class, Keon Brown, we found out yesterday, will not be enrolling at Oklahoma. Instead, he'll be going to Garden City Community College, which is also quite disappointing. So, it doesn't necessarily mean he's a bust, but we'll have to wait 2 years to see if he's anything. So, definitely not great. Wish I could have foreseen that, but I don't think there's anything I could really do about that one either.
If it's just grades, which I would imagine, or qualifying, that's not really your fault. But we'll see. David?
See, this is the section where I thrive here. I'm pretty hard on myself.
We just have time for one bust.
Oh, just one. Oh, okay. Probably just not being high enough on Tetero McMillan. Looking back on it in retrospect, he had a really good production profile, and that's something I wasn't looking at too closely. But he had 88 for 1302 and 18 TDs against 73.3 SOS in the Trinity League, which is essentially like the SEC in California. It's just he had not 2 good games against Mater Dei. Anyways, that was probably too low. There's other ones Chris Marshall, I'm gonna miss on now because he's a bozo, and then Randall. There is some signs on Randall with some of his biomechanics, but whatever. I'll keep it brief. So go ahead, Alfred.
Yeah, Randall's one for me. I struggled to just totally write him off because he at least avoided year 1-0. Maybe he heals up and gets some spring back in his step, but he's definitely on. I'm concerned because I think Antonio Williams is the number one there going into this year probably, and so, you know, I agree. But I think even worse than Adam Randall for me, and I was way on an island on this guy, Denylon Morissette. I had him like top three, I think. I did love the tape. He's obviously kind of a bozo like Marshall. I believe he already got arrested. He was a year 1-0 and got an arrest. I was joking with Austin the other day, like year 1-0 plus arrest has got to be one of the worst equations that you can have. So yeah, I'm pretty much thinking that Denylon Morissette ain't going to be a thing, and that's a bummer because I had him pretty high. But sometimes you just, I mean, his year 1-0, I don't think was related to attitude or anything. I think he just maybe wasn't good enough. So um, anyway, we'll see. All right, so I'm gonna skip the next section because I think we'll probably end up doing shows kind of all around it. It was like highly rated guys who will bust and lowly rated guys who might pop. We'll probably do a lot of that type of content. And then at the end, I'm gonna skip to competition. There was a question, and this should be easy to quickly answer. I'll let Matt do it because he kind of came up with the formula, I believe. How do we judge competition? Or if David did, I know David already mentioned strength of schedule earlier in one of his answers. How do we judge competition? Like, how do you judge if a guy's like in the middle of nowhere, Virginia versus a high school, Texas high school recruit?
Well, I was just saying, no, I did not create the formula. It's totally Max Preps, their strength of service. It's pretty much the only metric out there. They'll cover pretty much every high school in their approximate competition level. I wouldn't say it's perfect, but like I said, it's the only thing you have to fairly judge these schools and who they're playing against and how good they are.
Yeah, and we've used that. I mean, it's helpful. We did plug it in. We found that it was helpful, I think, in our model, and so it is part of the evaluation process there. So good find anyway. Even if it was Max Prep's numbers, it's still good to uncover that stone. All right, that does it for the mailbag. We got a few minutes here. I think we can rapid fire through some of these commitments this week. Michael Van Buren, a 4-star QB, going to Oregon. He's from all the way on the East Coast, I think, like Washington D.C. or somewhere in Maryland or something. Um, add in anything you want. He's sub 6 feet, which isn't the end of the world. He's very athletic, so he can definitely run around, make plays. He's I really like his burst. The arm to me was a little questionable. Like, I'm not sure it's like a really big gun, but I think he can be a very fun quarterback, and I think at least CFF a lot of upside with the athleticism. Do you guys see an NFL arm on this guy, or was I wrong in my assessment?
I think he has a decent arm. I think the bigger issue is he may be athletic, but he has no rushing production, and his accuracy is bad. I think he's like a under 55% completion rate. Just generally, I don't think he was super accurate. Didn't get an Elite 11 invite. Going to Oregon, I think I like Novosad more than him. So not a good outlook in my opinion.
Okay.
Anything else, 24/7 had. I looked all over, and then I found out that they put his stats on the website, and it said he only had 10 carries for 125 yards, which, given how he does look athletic, I don't know. He doesn't
seems
seem
low. Yeah,
like that's a good yards per carry. I don't know why he didn't run it. Maybe he'll run more this year. We'll see.
All right. Next guy, Tyler Cherry, who's actually, I think, a 4-star composite signing with, or, committing to Duke. I'm going to use one of Dave's terms. Big old pocket passer is what I see on this guy. I wasn't that impressed. I mean, I don't know why he's a 4-star, honestly. Maybe he showed up at camp. You guys have any thoughts on him? I mean, I watched him this week. I just kind of like, whatever. No? Okay.
No,
All
not
right,
really.
Jaden Baugh. He's an athlete committing to Arkansas. It looks like he's going to play running back. I was kind of impressed. He's a big, thick guy. He looks bigger, honestly, on tape than he's listed at 6. I think like 6 feet or 6'1", 210. He looks bigger. He looks really thick. Kind of a one-cut runner with some burst. He had a lot of receiving on his tape, which I love, of course, especially at that size, which kind of seems to be the way Arkansas goes lately. I mean, starting with Rocket Sanders, AJ Green, Rashad Dubignon was another one who had receiving all over his tape. So they're just stacking their running back room with these hybrid guys, which I love. and we just need some of them to start popping after Rocket Sanders goes to the NFL. Any other thoughts on Ball? I thought he was kind of interesting. I hadn't watched him before.
I don't have anything nice to say.
Oh boy. Okay.
He's slow, right? Is he slow? Did you get him an MPH?
I tried to get it, but it wasn't hitting 20.
No, it wasn't even hitting 20. Okay, well, he looked okay to me, but if he's not hitting 20, then that's not good. All right, Dylan Gresham, 4-star, seems to have a heck of a lot of speed. I thought he ruddered a lot, as David mentioned before. He's just kind of herky-jerky sometimes with his movements, but he's probably a slot type guy. What do you guys think of pairing him with Michael Van Buren for this 2024 class? Is Oregon building a Death Star or not really?
I mean, I do actually like him. I don't love Oregon as a landing spot because I think they've got some guys in that are better than him. Super productive receiver, though, playing, kind of middle tier competition California, but I think, well over 1,000 yards. One of the most, I think over 2,000. Yeah, year. One of the most productive receivers in the country. Yeah. Moves pretty well. Kind of bursty, dynamic guy, down the field threat. But probably not, someone I'm going to be super, super high. I'm like a mid tier 3 guy.
Sounds about right. And then, David, this is what you first introduced me to the term about quarterbacks. Cutter Boley, what do you think of him going to Kentucky? But a 4-star, so it's nice them getting a 4-star QB. I mean, that's got to be exciting for the Wildcats.
Yep, another big old pocket passer. I
love that. I don't know why.
It just means he's tall, he's got good stature, and he doesn't have a lot of mobility, which, obviously I talked about my types. It's just a little off-putting for me, but, a lot of big schools are offering him. I mean, he has an Alabama offer. So he was meant to be in the 2025 class, reclassified to 2024. He's not like young. This isn't like an Austin Mack situation where he's like freaking 16 years old or whatever. Like he's age appropriate for the 2024 class. But you know what? It's fine for Kentucky. He's got it. Any quarterback that's like big and has a big arm, like they're gonna get big offers usually.
Yeah,
that's kind of what we're looking at. Like his tape didn't wow me, honestly, but it's still a good year for him, I suppose.
I mean, I thought it was fine, but if you're Kentucky, you're not gonna be mad about it. All right, so yeah, those are our commitments, and that was a fun show. We should do more mailbags. I thought that was cool. Thanks, guys. We will see you all next week with another episode of The Official.